Welcome to the Masculine Spirit Podcast, where we discuss masculine development, spirituality, and potential from a Christian perspective. I'm Robert Kraus, and I'm joined by my co-host, Noah Bills. Today on this introductory episode of the podcast, we'll be discussing the purpose of the podcast, some of the goals that we aim to achieve through this podcast, a little bit about our backgrounds for each of us. And towards the end of the podcast, we'll be getting into some productivity tips as well as certain traps to avoid when it comes to being productive. Before we get started, I would like to read a verse from the Bible that I think will give us some guidance when discussing productivity and the various other topics that we discussed today. So the verse comes from Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 16. It says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil."
I like that verse.
It's a good one. I think it's relevant for making the most of the time that you have.
I agree. I mean, there's that old saying, the idle hands do the devil's work. I like to throw that around every now and then. You know, the concept that you want to use the best of your time and don't sit around and do nothing, yada, yada, yada.
That's true. And I think that everything in your life is directed towards some purpose. And if you can control what purpose your actions are directed towards, then you're going to be able to make a lot more progress.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah, so we'll be thinking about that verse and referencing it, going back to it throughout this episode. And before we get into our backgrounds, I just wanted to talk about the purpose of this podcast and just our vision kind of moving forward with it. We're really looking to talk to young men through this podcast, and we want to provide a community for people that's encouraging, that offers guidance regarding the many challenges that young men face nowadays.
On top of just like providing, our own personal experiences and perspectives, insights, really valuable, an outside look, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to provide our own individual knowledge, whatever that may be, even if it's not saying we're the most knowledgeable people. We're both relatively young, but we think that we have important things to say, and we hope that you can appreciate that as well. These discussions will be from a Christian perspective, just because me and Noah are Christian. We're both Christian. We don't want to exclude anybody who is not of that faith. We want to talk to all people, but just know that we're coming from that Christian perspective at the end of the day.
100%. Jesus won't exclude you. We won't exclude you.
No, and everybody has potential. Everybody wants to live up to their potential, and that's something that we're going to focus on. I'll start by just introducing myself. Like I said, I'm Robert Kraus, and I was born in Woodland, California, which is a small city outside of Sacramento. I was raised in a Christian household, and my parents were very loving. They always supported me, and I feel very fortunate to be raised in such a loving household. And although I was raised Christian, in high school, I definitely dealt with some serious doubts. I think that's normal for most people that are raised in a Christian family. Yeah, I was towards the end of high school, I wasn't really sure what I believed spiritually. I would say that I was following the Christian life, the Christian doctrine to some extent, but I wasn't super confident. Then fast forward about 2 years from my high school graduation, I had just started nursing school at a Christian college, and I just met my future wife. And I think over the 2 years that I spent at that school, my faith definitely grew much stronger through my relationship with my girlfriend at the time, and just the community that I found at that school, with it being a Christian school as well. And I'm now married, happily married for 1 year. Just had my year anniversary.
Woo. Oh, did you really? That's awesome, dude. I didn't even know that. Time flies, huh?
Time flies.
Crazy. Crazy. For
It's been a busy year, so I'm
sure.
enjoying that and working as a nurse. Just getting started with that as well.
Sick. So, I guess I'll give an introduction to myself as well. My name is Noah Bills. I was also born and raised in the little sleepy town of Woodland, California, outside of Sacramento. I had a very strong Christian upbringing, considering that my parents were pastors. So I've had that nailed into the over and over. Definitely have had some identity issues with Christianity growing up. I would say that like ultimately I had a strong faith, but not necessarily like a good like path with it. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing with myself as a Christian. I had to really like develop myself through them. Otherwise, now I am in college. I am pursuing a degree in electrical engineering. Almost done, almost out. Living in San Diego now, and getting ready for that next big step to step out to the working world and strut my stuff and be the Christian man I'm supposed to be. All that fun stuff.
Yes, sir. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be cool. We'll see what's up.
It's an exciting time.
It is, for sure. I'm very excited to see what will come out of it. Lots of moving parts. You don't really know what's going to go on until it hits you. So,
All right. So for this next section of the podcast, this is going to be the bulk of today's episode. Might have had a rough start, but
let's
it's only going up from here.
get it.
So the main discussion is going to be centered around productivity. And we thought this would be a good place to start because everyone wants to be more productive in their lives, even if people don't necessarily know what that means or what that looks like. Sometimes it can be hard to define. So that's part of what
Yeah,
we want to do.
it means different things to different people for sure. Something you kind of have to define for yourself, but also make sure it's actually well defined.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's challenging to know when you're being productive and ultimately to know what the goal of your productivity is, because there has to
Also
be
good.
some kind of goal at the end.
You also have to make sure that what you're doing isn't just ultimately wasting your time. You can be doing a bunch of stuff, but ultimately, if it's not well planned or well thought out, it's just it can go to nowhere, and you have so much wasted time on your hands when you could have been doing something more proactive.
Yes. So I have a couple questions written down relating to productivity. So we can just get right into the first one, which is, what is the goal of being productive for you? Yeah, you can maybe take a take a swing at that first.
Take a lead. Okay. So honestly, it's something that kind of changes for me because there's, the whole like everybody gets obsessed with like the overarching goals and like wanting to accomplish these big things and have these big dreams laid out. But honestly, like I'd say about like 60, 70% of the time, I'm just trying to like pin down things that are more day to day, like something as simple as just like doing my chores around the house, get that little hit of dopamine, from like cleaning something. Just like
Sure.
it's like the small things are what help me keep like sane day to day. And then there's that overarching umbrella of like, Oh yeah, also you have to become a full-fledged engineer and you have to be making strides for that. So oh, it's like a weird mix. Like I have to make sure that like I'm planting seeds at the same time as just like going straight for like simple tasks that have immediate rewards, you know. So productivity is making plans for the future, but also kind of solidifying what you already have going on in the present.
Yeah, it's like planting seeds, like you said, planting seeds for the future while also taking care of what you already have.
Exactly.
I like that because it kind of separates the small goals and small tasks in your life from the bigger things that are can sometimes be hard to conceptualize.
Yeah, it's hard to conceptualize and just kind of like more daunting. I feel like people get so daunted by the bigger tasks that they forget to like day to day take care of themselves and their environment, and it just makes things worse. Like if I like don't start, if I don't like take care of myself throughout the week, if I'm not going to the gym or like eating right, going on walks, or just being kind to myself in general, like that has definitely set me back more than anything when it comes to my bigger overarching goals.
Definitely. I think there's a baseline of certain things that you need to, I shouldn't say need to, certain things that are very beneficial for you to keep in check, like fitness, diet, sleep, making sure that you do whatever chores need to be done around the house, that kind of thing. Like it's incredibly helpful to have those dialed in.
For sure. Physical wellness promotes mental wellness, and mental wellness is like king. It's like number one. Like I don't care what else is going on. Like if I'm like content and happy with the good things that I've done, who I am, that's like all that matters.
Yes. Yeah. And ultimately, we do want to be aiming at those bigger goals, those career goals, maybe financial goals,
Family
you know,
goals,
yeah, family, all of those kinds of things. But the the pitfall to avoid is not to get caught up, get stressed out about those things because you're not seeing tangible progress to them right now because it's very difficult to see the progress towards those goals sometimes, especially depending on what stage of life you're in.
for
Um,
sure.
so don't be discouraged. Uh, those those things will come. Focus on the smaller things and doing what you can to move toward those bigger goals.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, those small things are what like lead up to you reaching your bigger goals in life. I mean, to an extent, obviously, you have to think about your bigger goals because, like, if you're not doing anything to go towards them, I mean, sure, you're not thinking about it, not stressing about it, but it's not even there in the first place. You still have to take those classes or get that work experience, or just put in the time and effort to develop anything. But again, like you said, it's not about getting tangible results right away, which is something that's like kind of difficult to deal with, I feel like, in modern society, considering that, we all want to just like be good at things immediately. I know so many people that are just like, they'll pick something up, but just get discouraged so fast because it just, I mean, yeah, you're not good at playing piano after your first week. That's crazy. Whoa, who would have thought?
Terrible.
Uh, versus like other things that you do can give, there's so many things these days that just give like instant gratification that it's so easy to like slip into something else that like ultimately brings you nothing. Like social media, you can delve into like some like video game type stuff, yada yada yada, like you're just indulging but you're not building.
I think it's easier than it's ever been to slip into behaviors like that.
I completely agree. The internet is a crazy thing. It's
Yeah, and
fun
I
though.
think it is
I
fun.
get it. I'm on there too. Don't worry.
It's a little too fun.
100%. I agree. But yeah, I mean that's part of what makes things so hard is that there's so many other things in life that can bring you joy, which I won't diss things that bring you joy. Like it's fine to have those little videos of kittens and puppies that make you happy, but you need to kind of evaluate sometimes. Like if you're not happy with where you are, you need to look at your habits and kind of decide, okay, like is what I'm doing right now really building up to where I want to be?
Yes, and I think one of the tough parts is the fact that so many of these things on social media, on YouTube, a lot of these things that are actually time wasters in reality. Sometimes we can frame them in a way, or they can be framed in a way where we think they're actually contributing to our progress.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be watching videos on YouTube about finance, about philosophy, these topics that are really important. Um,
For sure.
but at some point, when I'm on the sixth video in a row that I've been watching, when I should be doing something else, is this actually productive or is this a distraction now?
Yeah. No, 100%. It's a slippery slope for sure. And it's really difficult to balance. I don't think many of us realistically can just like kind of cut that stuff out. And honestly, like you don't really need to like cut it all out to like still have productive behavior and still like apply what you're learning and develop skills. It's just like it's a moderation thing for sure.
Yeah, it's about moderation and prioritizing things properly,
For sure. Yeah.
making sure that you deal with you deal with what's important, with what needs to be done before you relax. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so
Do good work while the sun's out, while you can still see. Then you can go back to your little cave for your restful 8 hours and do whatever. Maybe
yeah,
not necessarily
there's
do whatever, but like you could, be kind to yourself, indulge yourself in some things, relax your brain, and then get right back on it the next day.
I think it's helpful to have different periods of time that are allocated for work and other periods of time that are allocated for leisure. Because if you're trying to get something done, but you kind of just have this wishy-washy time where you're focusing on the task, but you're still allowing yourself to get distracted by things, you're going to be much less focused, not as efficient,
Yep.
and probably not do as high quality of work as you would want to do.
100%. I run into the issue like because I've been self teaching myself guitar for this past few years or so, nothing crazy. But I'll catch myself like doing like 10 minutes of guitar playing and then like 10 minutes of like scrolling on my phone, and then it's like cool, like sure maybe I spent an hour and a half practicing on guitar, air quotes, but half that time I was probably just on my phone because I just like get a little, my hands get a little crampy and tired. I get a little silly and I don't want to be on my phone, and then take a little break, and that break becomes just as long as the work that I was doing.
Yeah, yeah, we've all been there.
Bad news bears.
And another great aspect of separating your time like that is that when you're in the leisure time that you've set aside already, you're not going to be worried about trying to get things done because you already got done what you needed to, or at least
For sure.
what you needed to in that time. So your leisure time can be completely guilt-free, just relaxation,
For
um,
sure.
which
Unless you
I
have
think,
crazy anxiety and then you're just thinking about things all the time and you can't relax, but that's no, it's not an issue I deal with. So it sucks to have severe anxiety, but
no, of course not. I've never experienced that.
yeah, yeah, right. It only just keeps me up at night, so that's fine.
All right, so another question that we can get into is how can we determine if a behavior is productive? I guess I'll start with this one.
Yeah, you start. I don't want to answer that.
You don't want to answer that one?
No, no, I'm
It's
kidding. I'll
too.
answer it. I just want you to start.
It's a scary question.
It's intimidating. That's fine.
So for me, I think a behavior is productive if it's ultimately moving you towards goals that are important in your life. So that means that depending on what a person's goals are, productivity is going to look different. So
It's kind of a weird thing though, because like we just talked about the premise that some of the things you work towards you're not seeing the results of. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm not seeing the results of it right now, how do I know if it's actually moving towards like what I want? You know. But what I've seen consistently and what typically as a culture what we foster is it's like we move towards things, we move in paths that we've seen other people move in when we want to get to our goals. You want to get this XYZ job, then how do you know you get into it? Well, people who have gone to college and gotten degrees and they get into it. Or people that have worked with certain businesses and gotten certain positions and then worked their way up to it. It's like a trust the process kind of a thing from other people's experience because like I said, if it's not tangible immediately, like it's really easy to get discouraged. It's hard to really know if it's productive. But if you've seen it work for other people and you have a similar environment and similar circumstances in which it can happen, then you know that what you're working for is likely to work out.
I think that going to the gym and trying to get in shape can be a good kind of allegory for a lot of these issues.
I agree.
Um,
As a man who's shredded, you can't see me right now, but I'm absolutely shredded. I have like an 8 pack. I know what I'm talking about.
oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm aware. I don't know about the
Yeah,
8 pack, but I'm aware that you are a swole man.
yeah, sure.
But with the gym, you have something that a lot of people start when they're not super confident, but they've seen many other people get the results that they want to achieve. They've seen their friends who were skinny or their friends who were fat um, build muscle, lose weight, whatever it is, and they know that there is a process that's proven that has worked in the past and that they can follow too.
A good old scientific progress.
At the beginning of a process like that, the most important thing is just building consistency, being able to keep going into the gym, keep investing, keep working on your business, whatever the goal is. You want to stay consistent with that because you will learn the things that do work for you and you will learn the things that don't work for you and be able
Yeah,
to create new iterations.
exactly. And that is actually like a pretty important thing too, is like even though it is a very heavy trust the process thing, you do develop your own style with it. You do understand like these like techniques that are much easier for you to employ and give you like so much progress maybe in areas where other people struggled and vice versa. Because I know as like it's one thing that was really big in gym culture when I first started going. 'Cause I maybe started going to the gym and weightlifting like 6 years ago. A lot of people were just trying to cut down on fat more than anything. I feel like it's really gotten more popular for skinnier guys to go into the gym and build muscle, and that's a whole other ball game. If
Amen,
you're if
brother.
you're built skinny, uh, gaining muscle as a skinny boy is a way different process than it is for someone who's heavier set, has like slower metabolism. So I was doing things that these bigger guys would tell me to do. And like, I mean, the premises are still the same. You do your caloric surplus, you train really hard to make sure you're going to failure or close to failure, yada, yada, yada. That all works. But there's a lot of other underlying challenges physically and even psychologically that go into it that I had to learn for myself. It was very much trust the process, but I've had to make changes and make developments based off what I see in myself and my own progress to really understand. Okay, like this is gonna work or this isn't. going to work. In the end, you don't know until you put work into it. If you're not putting work into it, you'll never know.
Definitely. That's the only way to truly discover for yourself. You can read books, you can watch YouTube videos, get advice from other people, but until you have that firsthand experience, it's not going to stick with you, and you won't have made any progress toward those goals in the first
Exactly.
place.
You won't have that knowledge, that mad knowledge.
Yes, experiential knowledge, the best kind.
Existential knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. It's all fun stuff. Go to the gym. I recommend it. 10 out of 10. Well, except for the
Yes,
body dysmorphia, but that's fine. 9 out of 10.
that's fine. It just motivates you to try even harder.
Yeah, you give yourself a psychological illness to motivate you. I mean, it kind of works low key. It's
By any
motivating
means
for sure.
necessary.
By any means necessary. Yep, I like that.
All right, so we kind of got into this a little bit earlier, but the next question I have is, how can productivity look different for different people?
Yeah, I guess that kind of like shifts back into the like self perspective. Like you have this understanding based off your peers, like what path to take, what gets you from A to B, but then ultimately, you have to feel it out for yourself. Um, and not only that, like the appearance of being productive and being actually productive are kind of different things. Like from the outside, people can look at you doing things. You're like, I don't know what that guy's doing. I think that's going to work out, but you gotta know for yourself exactly what you're working for, and if you truly know it's has that payoff.
Yeah, because something that can happen to people, it's happened to me several times, is bouncing back and forth between different goals when you're not entirely sure what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be switching majors, switching the type of business you want to get into, maybe even the type of training you're doing in the gym,
Yep.
which is fine to some extent. It's fine for the purpose of learning what you want to do when that's
Yep.
when
100%.
that's what you're doing, when you're in that place. But once you invest a lot of time into something and you start to see progress, you're enjoying it, I would recommend from my personal experience to kind of just double down on that thing and go 100% in on it.
Yep. I mean, if you're really deriving a lot of like good, healthy pleasure, you see it benefits you physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, why not? Why not indulge in that fun little thing? But I mean, yeah, it's definitely good to go around and like try different things. Like you never know what you're missing out on until you try it. And obviously, it's good to explore as a young person to go out there and kind of like figure things out. But you want to make sure that like you're actually putting good time and commitment into it because, like I said before, there's this like thing that people have where they'll start things and drop it immediately because they're not like good at it, day one or whatever, or like it just doesn't feel right. But if in the end, if you know it has and can see it has tangible results for other people that you want to obtain, you really just need to stick with it. And if you find your, like I said, if you find yourself really liking it and being motivated with it, then you should 100% just go all for it. Like what's stopping you? Yeah.
And when you stick with something for an extended period of time, you're going to start to see yourself surpass all the people that are undecided, that haven't, discovered that thing. Not to hate on those people.
No, we can hate on them a little bit, but not like a ton.
A little bit. But if you're in that place where you're still figuring out what you want to do, that's great. Keep gaining experiences, keep trying new things. But when you do something and you feel that call, you feel that passion, you see progress that you like, don't ignore it. Don't move on to the next thing. Like, stick with it
But
for a bit and see it to the end.
yeah, there's a reason behind it. Like if it really resonates with you, like that's not an accident, you know. I feel like
No.
it's a calling to a sense. Like speaking from my own experience, from like a lot of the hobbies that I've developed the past few years, you know, doing the gym, getting like instrumental in music, like it was definitely difficult at first. And of course, there's the whole, you know, not seeing tangible results. But at some point, just something kind of clicked with me. Like, I don't consider myself, you know, crazy proficient or adept in any of these hobbies or skills that I've developed, but I've always just had something click. And in the end, like, I do see tangible results and I'm doing the things that I want to be doing. And I feel incredibly happy and content with myself. I'm not necessarily doing it with the goal of being the best or reaching the top or doing it faster or better than anybody else, but I am happy, and I feel like that's like number one. You know,
All of those different pursuits in your life should be contributing to your happiness. I wouldn't say that happiness is the most important thing, but the
I feel like it
pursuits.
depends on where you derive it from. Yeah, because I mean, you can be happy killing people, and I don't recommend that personally.
No, I've tried it. Not, it doesn't work. It's not great.
Yeah, no, but I get what you mean. Like, yeah, happiness is not the most important thing. That's just dopamine chasing. That's not bad. That's not a good thing. It's a bad thing.
Yeah, but sometimes happiness can be a good indicator that you're on the right path.
For
Sometimes,
sure.
sometimes it is that.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be miserable doing these things. If you're just like, I mean, if you see something that like you maybe want to obtain, but you're just miserable the entire time, no matter how much effort or time or resources you put into it, you know, maybe that's the sign you shouldn't pursue it in a sense. There's some things where maybe that's not always the case. I feel like physical fitness, I don't care how miserable you are, it's very important to be physically fit. But if it's like a hobby and you just hate it, you've been doing it for years, maybe your parents made you do it growing up. Who cares if you're good at it? If you're not happy doing it, then, you know,
And people can
why?
get stuck in those hobbies or even careers just to impress somebody else, just to impress their family, just because they think they need to make a certain amount of money and their job is stable when they're actually passionate about something else and they could be working towards that.
For
But
sure.
sometimes fear can keep people from doing that.
Yeah. Motivation is a big part in it as well. Um,
Yeah, you get comfortable in the things that you do all the time.
for sure. Who wants to be comfortable? That's crazy.
Not me. That doesn't sound very masculine to me.
Yeah, I want to be hella masculine and uncomfortable all the time. So,
Yes. Yes, discomfort is joy.
amen, brother.
All right, so this is the last question for this portion. What is the difference between healthy productivity and unhealthy productivity? For me, I think there are certain baselines. I was talking about this earlier a little bit. There are certain baselines in your life that when you meet them, they keep you healthy, keep you having enough energy, avoiding serious health problems. So that would be things like fitness, sleep, diet, just completing the everyday tasks of life.
Yep.
So if you trying to be productive in pursuit of a certain goal takes away from those things, if it takes away from those things in any significant long-term fashion, then that's going to be unhealthy for you.
For sure. I think bad, like, what was the terminology of the question? Good productivity versus bad productivity, right?
Basically, healthy productivity versus unhealthy.
I think a lot of that for me lies in the motivation. One instance I can think of is like maybe the pursuit of wealth or money or whatever, those typical things. Not to knock on, it's nice to have a lot of money. You want security. You want to know that you're taking care of the people you'll ever take care for and everything. But you make sacrifices going for big things like that. And there's what was it? There's an old coworker I had who had gone to New York. She like visited some friend there. Her friend was like a bartender, so she was out in the bars all the time, and she had a fun time, going to the bars in New York. It sounds crazy, but she met like all these people who were just so depressed out of their minds. Like they practically lived to work, earn money, and then just get slammed at a bar just to like cope. And it's like, what are you like really working towards? Maybe it's the experiences. You just want to be fucked up all the time and just grind yourself to a halt just to get the most out of yourself in a fashion, whatever. But you really have to understand your motivations. Like, what are you working towards? Is like you're really just killing yourself slowly for something like that, and you hate it. Like, what's the point? Where are you going?
The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil.
Yep. That's why I only kind of like money. I don't love it.
It's not a
It's like,
serious relationship. It's just
yeah, I go to her for fun sometimes, but then I'm like, maybe not.
I think with money, that's probably the only time when that kind of relationship is a great idea.
Yeah, pretty much, right? I don't know. There could be love for like other evil things too. Again, motivations. If you could be the most productive serial killer in the world, I consider that bad productivity. Like you don't want to do things that tear other people down. You don't want to do things that tear yourself down. I mean, not everything you do is going to have like an instant gratification and make you feel amazing. There is a little bit of self-wear in work, but that's like the premise of it. Work isn't supposed to be like some crazy enjoyable thing. It's supposed to be work. But you're working towards something. You're working for a salary so you can pay your bills, live comfortably, splurge on a few things here and there, go out with friends, provide for your family. That's good. That's fine.
Work is not supposed to be fun all the time, but hopefully you can end up in a career that you are very passionate about and that you find to be incredibly engaging and challenging in a
For
good
sure.
way.
Yep.
Yeah, and going back to the money issue, I think that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So money itself is not a bad thing. It's not evil. You're not evil if you happen to be a millionaire or whatever, a super
Maybe
rich
a
person.
billionaire, but that's
Maybe a billionaire. That is a little questionable.
For sure.
But the point is money cannot take priority over the much more important things in your life. So that's God, your relationships, specifically your, intimate relationships, your children, if you have children,
Friendships.
these friendships, all of these things have to take priority. It's okay to have a goal of wanting to become a millionaire.
It makes logical sense to want a lot of money. Like we all get it, But
Yeah.
if you're hopelessly depressed and like going crazy and suicidal, trying to achieve it by whatever means you're going for right now, step back, reevaluate your motivations, and kind of decide like is this path worth it? can I be much happier doing maybe something lower income that'll maybe help me grow more, help me develop, help me just be sane?
And
Money
understand that money will not satisfy you.
rarely
It's,
does.
yeah, money can make you happy. It can make you secure financially, make you feel safe. But money alone, without relationships, without a connection to your higher purpose and spirituality, is not going to bring you anything fruitful.
Yeah. In the end, extra money can only provide you things that are superficial. Um, you get the baseline amount of money to live. You know, any money, any like extensive money after that's really just like for little surges of fun things and dopamine rushes, but that takes you nowhere.
Well, I would disagree a little bit with that because I think that
Excuse me?
it's totally it's totally fine to earn way more money than you need and to use it. There are very valid uses such as charity, uh,
Oh yeah,
ensuring that
that's
your
fine.
family is secure.
I was hoping
Uh,
you weren't going to say like a yacht or something, because then I would have to go crazy on you.
hey, I mean, there are luxury things that I think are okay to buy, but it's like they're okay. They're only okay to buy when you're making sure that you're giving back, you're providing for your family, you are doing all of those other things that are
For
much
sure.
more important.
Your money and priority should be in other places, but if you happen to be crazy rich and have that extra money, sure, buy yourself a Lamborghini. Why not? The rest of your boxes are checked off, you know, you got that little bonus box at the end. Buy a red Lamborghini. You can check that off. Have fun with that.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me, but have fun with that, I guess.
Have fun. Have fun, but not at the expense of other people or your higher purposes.
Amen, brother.
Okay, so we've reached the point in today's show where we're going to go over a
We're gonna
list
sing a
of
song.
silly songs with Larry.
Part of the show where Larry sings a silly song.
That's for the Christian audience out there. Everyone else will
Nothing else.
not get that reference.
Nothing else here is for the Christian audience except for that.
Yeah, you guys can uh, click off the podcast now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we're going to be going over a list of 6 different things that can hinder productivity, obstacles to productivity, whatever you want to call them.
Yep,
And I think they're all things that are prevalent in our culture and things that most people will probably have experiences with firsthand.
yep.
I
Okay,
will I will read them off.
sounds
Number
good.
1 is substance abuse. Yeah, so
Yeah,
some people may not have experience with this, but I think a lot of us do. So this substance abuse can take a lot of different forms. There's the common ones that everyone knows about: alcohol, marijuana, um, the hard drugs.
yeah. Those
But
silly hard drugs.
yeah, there are also smaller things like caffeine and nicotine that can seriously addict people. And
Sugar,
sugar, yeah, that's a big one. Food in general.
food, good food.
Being lazy, that would be, well, not a substance abuse. That's
Yeah,
that's more of a different type of addiction.
yeah.
But the point
And
is there's a lot of different things that can cause addiction.
for sure, there's a lot of sources of it, and I mean, obviously, like it's not a bad thing to like indulge in some of this stuff every once in a while. It's all about like moderation. If I can give my weed testimony, I quit smoking weed like a month ago, but before that, I was pretty much smoking like every single day for like 5 or 6 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't say that it like massively hindered my productivity. Like I was going, this was like I started smoking like pretty much out of high school. But ever since then, I've been like fully enrolled in classes. So I'm doing school full time. I've been working like minimum 20 hours a week, sometimes up to like 35, doing all these things, trying to juggle like my social responsibilities on top of it all. And I could like reasonably handle it. Like I never had a ton of issues. Like I have my general, procrastination, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the key difference is that I never felt like I was abusing it. Sure, I was using it daily. I know for a lot of people that seems like that's a crazy amount. For a little bit of insight, when I quit weed a month ago, I had absolutely no physical withdrawals at all, even though I've been smoking almost every single day for 6 years. No physical withdrawals. It's been brain dead easy to drop off. It's nothing crazy. The issue with most people is that they're smoking throughout the entire day, like all the time, and it becomes a dependency, and that's where it becomes a substance abuse. In my case, I never struggled with that because my boundary that I had with myself was I only smoked at the end of the day after I had done like my major productive things for the day, after I had done my classes, my homework, and did my shift. I was never high doing my homework, never high going to class, never high going to work. I never let that become a part of like my productive time. It was purely out of the few hours of leisure I had at the end of the day. Super manageable, worked out for me, no issues, no abuse. Versus other cases, you have people doing these things just to get them through the day. Caffeine, you see it all the time. Oh man. Working at the gym was crazy because the amount of caffeine that people consumed at the gym was insane. They'd start their day with like an energy drink, like their morning with an energy drink, but then on their way to work, they would grab coffee, and then they probably have another energy drink as a pre-workout, and maybe even a pre-workout on top of that. I know people that are probably regularly taking like upwards of 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is crazy because like
That is rough.
it's like the caffeine in like a soda is like what, like 20 to 30 milligrams.
Probably, maybe 40.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. And like I understand like caffeine for a good kick in the morning, like you see that a lot. It's obviously like very ingrained in our culture to like use caffeine, but you see a lot of people with a dependency, and that dependency turns into a lot of money coming out of your wallet. Um, Obviously, there aren't any like significant, well, I mean, except for like heart failure in the excessive cases. But you drink a couple 100 milligrams of caffeine a day. Long term, there isn't any crazy side effects. No, it's definitely better than doing crack to start your day. But it is something to keep it. It is something to keep a note of. Like your tolerance is only going to get higher the more you do it. You're going to start needing it more. You're going to start wanting it more. You're going to start spending more money on it, and you're going to start being dependent on it. And watch out for that.
Yeah, anytime you're using any kind of substance for a specific purpose, some kind of stimulation that you get from it, which is what people are using caffeine for, despite some people who try to deny that.
For sure.
You have to approach it with a level of caution. Like I currently use caffeine. I work the night shift,
Whoa.
and I do.
I didn't know you were hardcore like that, Robbie.
My name's Robert, and I am a caffeine user.
Addict? Oh, user? Okay.
Hey, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Okay, that's fine. So I can come up to you and tell you I'm a meth user and you'll be chill with it. As long as I'm not an addict.
Of course.
Okay.
Your body, your
Okay.
choice, right?
Amen, brother. Okay.
Like I was saying, I do currently use caffeine, and I work 12-hour night shifts. It's only 3 shifts per week, so it's not too bad. But staying awake for the entire night is definitely difficult if you don't have some kind of assistance. So I usually drink one energy drink per night. And besides that, I mostly stay away from caffeine. So I think I've been doing pretty well with not letting it get out of control in any way.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm always cautious of that though, because sometimes I do feel the urge to drink more caffeine than I would like to. So
For sure.
it's just a matter of always keeping an eye on it, being honest with yourself, and using moderation.
Yep. Substance use versus substance abuse. Remember, kids, heroin's okay as long as you're not addicted to it.
Well, I actually wanted to mention those harder drugs as well.
Oh, for sure. From a nurse's
Obviously,
standpoint, you probably have more better things to say than I do.
I don't know. That sounded pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, you think so? So I can go out and just try heroin once and just be chill.
No, so obviously we do not endorse any kind of use of those drugs in any capacity. And if you do happen to be a user of any of the harder drugs, anything that's dangerous, but that's going to be your first priority is cutting that out. That above all else.
Yep. Your family wants you to do it. Your coworkers want you to do it. You gotta cut that out. Cut that shit out.
Yeah. So prioritize that. Get some help. Get admitted to a rehab facility if necessary. But yeah, if that's you, we care about you. But you gotta deal with that problem first.
Get your shit straight. We love you. Smooch.
Amen.
Amen.
So, second item on the list. This is a hot topic. This is a controversial topic. Get ready for this one. It is porn addiction.
How's that controversial? I feel like everyone kind of knows it's bad.
I don't know. There's a fair amount of people that want to promote porn use as a good thing.
I mean, that's true. That's probably more on like the seller's point of view. I think otherwise, I mean, I would hope that we know that the porn addiction is a bad thing. It's a waste
You
of
would hope.
seed.
It is. It's also a waste of time, a waste of dopamine and other neurochemicals that are very valuable. And it results in the abuse of tons of people.
For
So
sure.
it's really terrible all around. There's no good side to it,
Nope.
but it is incredibly addicting. For that reason, I think it's one of the most dangerous and one of the most commonly experienced addictions, especially for men nowadays.
Yeah. I think one of the huge issues with it is the ease of access. You know, it's one thing to try and find a plug for heroin, if I can keep going back to the heroin example.
Oh yeah,
But
keep going back
literally,
to it.
yeah, it's my favorite. But it's ridiculously easy to like find pornography or sexual content like anywhere. It even gets like pushed on you where you don't even want it. Like on my Instagram feed, like I'll just like get like random things that are just hypersexualized. I'm like, huh. I wonder what my algorithm's telling me. Maybe I look too long at a photo or something, and now it's just like all downhill. And now all my content's hypersexualized. It's trying to push that on me. It's bad news, man.
It's one of the easiest ways for companies, social media influencers, all of those people to get clicks because there is, as I'm sure you're all aware, we all have this thing called a sex drive, and
Oh, whoa, what's a sex drive? Dr. Robbie?
especially especially men have quite a large sex drive most of the time, especially young men, and when we when we see something that activates that, it is difficult to control.
Monkey brain goes crazy.
Monkey brain, it's a real thing. So I was just going to say that limiting your exposure to that kind of content is a huge thing because the temptation that you get by seeing it is something that will draw you in, and it's very hard to get out of it at that point. So just trying to avoid it in any way possible is probably the best move.
Yep. It's pretty crazy. It's another one of those things where it's just like a dopamine fix. Like you just want like a little surge of brain pleasure and you get hooked on it, and it's a really sad thing to fall into because in the end like you're getting preyed on when you like indulge in that stuff like in a crazy amount. Not to mention that the porn industry is super fucked up, and there's so much like shit going on behind the scenes that most people aren't really aware of. It's based upon like just like sex trafficking, practically.
Yeah, the porn industry preys on women who, for whatever reason, feel the need to get into that, mostly for financial reasons, and then through the content that it produces, it then preys on men who watch the content for financial gain, and it's a huge industry. I don't know exactly how much it's worth, but I've heard some extremely large numbers. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to keep being produced and keep escalating, and it does not serve you in any way. So avoid it. We probably will do an episode later on that goes more in depth on that, because I think there's a ton to say about it.
It's a huge psychological thing. Like it affects much more than you think.
Yeah, it'll subconsciously change the way that you
Ow.
think about women, the way that you interact with people in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's number 2. Number
Número
3,
dos y número tres. Muy bien, muy bien.
social media. This is a big one as well.
Yeah, social media is interesting because it can serve as both like a motivator and a demotivator, in my opinion. I feel like with access to the internet, you have the ability to create a platform for yourself, and then have this idea that you're producing things or developing things for the satisfaction of other people. Which in a way, it could be nice. If you like playing music for video clicks, then you're motivating yourself to get more proficient at that instrument. But then in the end, you're fighting for clicks and you're making sacrifices in a sense for that. I think there are healthy ways to go about it for sure, but it's another trap. On the flip side, though, I see this a lot with like gym related content. Is like you see so many people doing all this crazy stuff, benching 500 pounds. Like every other week, you just see a video of some guy doing that, and then it kind of like demotivates you in the sense that like, oh, like I can never get that far. I can never be that strong. I can never, A, B, and C. It's a really interesting contrast to have, but social media serves a lot of very interesting purposes and can affect you mentally in many different ways.
And that's not to discount its good purposes. Unlike
For sure.
unlike number 2 with porn, there's no benefits to that. It's just all bad. But social media does have a purpose, which is what it was created for. At least that's what they tell us.
Yep.
To help connect people, to help maintain relationships that are long distance, and expose you to a lot of things that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. That stuff can be good. That can be really good, but it's a slippery slope. And like Noah was saying, you have the perspective of the creator and you have the perspective of the consumer. And most of us are probably primarily consumers. Some of us are creators. But as a consumer on social media, it's very important to be intentional with what you consume, with the things that you watch, the things that you read and listen to.
Yep. Yep.
because there are tons of things that will grab your attention, but won't give you anything in return. you can spend hours watching YouTube videos, watching Instagram videos, and not really have any lasting positive impact from that.
For sure. But there is, like I said, pros and cons. There are benefits. There are things you can learn, things you can become more aware of, things you can teach yourself, things that are just, give you a little silly, happy dopamine rush for funsies. That can, keep your indulgences where they are. Make sure you don't go too crazy into anything. Understand the pros and cons, reap the most you can get from it.
Yeah, it's fine to look at memes, I like memes just as much as the next guy. But
I like them a lot.
are you spending hours a day looking at memes? That's probably something you should cut back on, because it's not contributing to your goals.
Unless your goal is to be a meme lord, then you look at them all the time.
Yeah, if your business is to create the dankest memes, then maybe you can justify that.
For sure. If you own a meme page, that makes sense.
All right.
This is the part of the podcast where I promote my meme page.
I didn't know you had a meme page.
This is the part of the podcast where I stop promoting the meme page that I don't have.
Man, I was getting a little excited for that, but
yeah, I know. I'll send them to you directly. Don't worry.
For sure, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So next one on the list is one that I know hits very close to home for Noah and me too.
What's the list? I don't even see it. What's going on?
I really love that you can't see the list. That makes it.
I saw it earlier, but then I closed it because it was causing lagging issues. So now I'm in suspense. What is it? Tell me.
It's video games.
Oh, I would never play video games.
Oh yeah, it's too childish for you.
Yeah. My dad always hated video games. So I never owned I never owned a Game Station 2 in my entire life.
Yeah, you're right. Your dad definitely doesn't have a level 300 Dark Souls character.
Whoa. We don't talk about that.
Video games. What is the problem with them, and what are the benefits? Because they're obviously not all bad in moderation.
Yeah, obviously the bad things are they teach you violence and then you go out and start shooting people in the streets. That's a bad thing.
Obviously, it's scientifically proven. Everyone who plays GTA becomes a murderer.
Yes. So stay away from GTA. We got mass murders before we got GTA 6.
Okay, but on a real note, video games can take up a lot of time, which is what a lot of these things come down to. They take up a lot of time and don't necessarily give you much back. So
yeah, and I guess that's where the testimony that Robbie called me out on with is that I was a prolific gamer back in my day. Contrary to what I said before, I was maybe fibbing a little bit, but I got introduced to video games young by my father in an innocent fashion, but I went crazy with it, and I literally probably did nothing with myself throughout the entirety of my public school career except just like play video games. And it was a fun time. It was a fun time, don't get me wrong, but I felt like I wasted so much of my life away just doing that. Like, it was fun in the moment, but ultimately I was just kind of like putting things off with it. Like I just didn't like recognize other things that I could do with myself. I consistently told myself I could never do X, Y, and Z with my life because I just like wasn't motivated enough or I didn't have like the potential and I just sat back and just played video games instead, and it hindered me a lot. Um, Obviously with all these things that we've talked about, it's fine in moderation. Like I still play video games now, but I really had to like evaluate what I was doing with myself and where I wanted to be and make changes in my life based off of that. So now I have more than one hobby. I no longer have the only hobby of playing video games.
Good job. You are an elite man.
I had to go into hobbies that I felt like more productive for my brain. I also wanted to maintain my vision. I don't know how blue light's really going to affect us long term, but supposedly it isn't great. And I want to keep my 20/20 vision for as long as I can.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, yeah. I also just don't want to be a screen slave. I'm already on my phone a little too much these days. I don't want to add too much video games on top of that.
On the bright side, the time that you were experiencing the most addiction or just overuse of video games was during high school, during your early years. So it's easy to recover from things that
Yeah, it was only my formative years.
only your formative years.
Yeah, but
Yes,
yeah,
but
pros and cons. Like obviously, like in high school, you're not realistically gonna get a ton done with your life. You're just kind of going through the motions and figuring things out. Um, so it's definitely a good thing I was doing it at that point rather than in my 20s now, instead of like doing things that'll help me out and pursuing a career or like hobbies that'll actually help me like develop my brain more and my have better physical benefits and emotional benefits, all that fun stuff. I will say though, the social aspect of gaming can be productive and healthy if you're somebody who finds it difficult to engage socially with people, but you can play video games with friends pretty easily. Like social connections still really big and really important for us. Humans are social creatures. I find that 90% of the time when I'm gaming now, it's like I'm hopping on a game with friends and I can have a good time, catch up with people, and it's like video gaming is like a vessel for that. It's not purely
yes,
self-indulgence at that point.
that is a great use for video games. Most of the time now when I play video games, it's with other people. I really like playing party games, Mario Party, Smash Bros, all of those kinds of things, and they can be super fun, super socially fun. I can't think of a better word, but
Socially acceptable. Nobody likes gamers unless it's the socially acceptable video games.
yes. And one other aspect of video games I wanted to talk about is their propensity to to
Make you
encourage.
shoot people.
Not exactly.
Oh,
We
okay.
mentioned that, I think.
Oh yeah, we did. I was doubling down, but I guess that was bad. Okay, go on.
But video games can be a very easy escape for people, an escape from reality, because there are entire worlds, fictional worlds you can explore. You can basically have an entire different life in a video game, and it's
Yeah,
becoming more and more advanced recently.
for
So I
sure.
think that can be dangerous because it can distract from real life. It can distract from the goals that are actually important to you.
It takes you away from the things you're called to do.
Yeah, if you let it, then it will.
Yep. Yeah, definitely a big escapist thing. That's like what I was doing. Like I felt like I had a lot of internal issues that I just didn't want to deal with. So I would just sit myself in front of a screen so I wouldn't have to think and I could have a good time. I could play Overwatch and be salty as hell because of my teammates and all that fun stuff.
And I definitely struggled with the same thing. My thing was more single player RPGs. I would get super sucked into them and put a bunch of hours into them, sometimes making me neglect more important things.
Yeah, you want to see
Um,
my 1,000 hour Skyrim file?
I believe you without seeing it.
That's actually kind of offensive that you would believe I had one of those. I do not have a 1,000-hour Skyrim file. Come on, come on.
I mean, I've heard crazier things.
Valid. I do
So
not have a 1,000-hour Skyrim file. I want that on record.
it's officially on record now. It is recorded
Sick.
for the world to
Sick.
hear.
Sick. Hi, Mom.
So the next two items on the list we can go over pretty quickly. Next one is TV. Of course, everybody loves sitting down, watching some TV, watching a movie. It's a good time.
Yep.
But similar
I mean,
to
yeah.
video games, it can be an escape, an unhealthy escape sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, a lot of the pros and cons with television are similar to video games. Um, Maybe there's more like cultural stuff going on in like viewing media that can serve to have some insight into who we are and all that fun stuff. There's movies that delve deep into the human psyche. And there's the good things you can draw from it, and even like socially, it's like a fun thing to go like see a movie. But like you said before, like it can serve as an escape. It can serve as a time waster. You got to be careful about things like that.
Yes, and there's the other aspect of both video games and TV where you're going to be inside when you're doing these things. It's not necessarily the greatest thing for humans to be inside all day. It's actually good
Typically
to
not.
go outside and get some sunlight.
Touch grass more on.
Yeah, touch some grass. It'll reap dividends in the future.
100%.
And the last item on the list is kind of just a catch-all for everything else that does not contribute to your mission or your core values. So anything that is not aligned with your purpose, is not contributing to your relationships, your spirituality, your career growth. If it's not contributing effectively to those things, then it's ultimately not productive. That it doesn't mean that you can't do things that aren't productive ever,
For sure.
but it means
There
that
are
you need
productive
to,
times, non-productive times.
yeah, and you need to have control over when those times are.
Exactly. Have control and then have, the knowledge and know-how to understand that what you're doing is actually contributing to those core values or the really important things in our lives, such as, relationships and career development, healthy hobbies, fun stuff like that.
Yeah, don't trick yourself into thinking that watching the new season of Fallout is going to improve your relationships somehow, or
It might. You never know until you watch it. Remember, guys, you don't know until you try it.
oh yeah, you never know. Just like with heroin.
Ooh. Yeah, you never know if heroin's going to change your life for the better unless you try it.
It'll change your life somehow.
I don't doubt that. That's the big takeaway. Heroin will change your life.
I think we can all agree on that, but maybe not for the
Sick.
same reasons.
Sick.
So we've gone over all of the obstacles to productivity that I wanted to talk about.
Sick.
The next section is just going to be a couple techniques, a couple methods that you can implement to really just make yourself more efficient and help yourself to stay focused on the things you want to accomplish.
Yep.
So the first one is the Pomodoro technique. This is a pretty famous thing. I don't know if you've heard about it before, Noah, but
Nope.
essentially what it is intervals of work followed by short break intervals. So the classic way that this would play out is a 25-minute period of work focused on whatever you're working on, followed by 5 minutes of a break. And for whatever period of time that you're working, you're going to be going back and forth, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes break.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I think I have heard about this. There was like an online friend that I'd met who he went to some prestigious university. I'm just gonna like say Harvard because I kind of forgot. But he said he would do something similar. I think it was like about a half hour, 5 minute split where he would just go crazy for half an hour on whatever work you need to do, 5 minute break on your phone or whatever. Go crazy, 30 minutes, 5 minute break.
It works. I used it in nursing school when I was studying for my exams. I would do 45 minutes of studying followed by 15 minutes for a break,
Nice.
and it was super helpful. It was a study group with about 6 other people, and
Hmm.
I remember
Oh,
when
you
we
all did. You all
started,
did that?
we all did it, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And yeah, I just remember when we started, we weren't using this technique. We were just kind of studying for as long as we possibly could until we felt like we needed a break.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't nearly as efficient because we would get to the end of these long study periods and we'd be so much less efficient than we would otherwise
Yep.
be.
Yep.
But when we were
Um,
using the Pomodoro technique, we would work for 45 minutes. It would be solid. We would have a lot of energy, a lot of focus. Take a 15-minute break, get a snack, play a game, watch a video or something, and then come back to work. And it's almost like you're refocused again. Almost
ready
makes
to
you feel
go.
fresh. Yeah.
That's not bad. I remember trying to study with people and it never worked out because we would just like dick around. We would just get bored and then just like have an untold break. But I think having that structure in place, especially when everybody like goes along with it, would really help with something like that.
I would highly recommend it if you're ever in a setting with where group work needs to be done.
For
It's
sure.
a very useful technique.
Yeah. You got A's on all your exams, right? 100% every single exam.
All of them, yeah. Yeah, at least
Yeah.
99%.
Sick. I like that.
So next technique is very helpful as well. I think this is something that a lot of people do intuitively, but it's grouping similar tasks together.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's intuitive, but sometimes you can find yourself in a situation where you're switching back and forth between tasks. You're doing something on your computer, then you're cooking, then you're doing laundry, whereas all of those things would probably get done much more quickly if you just took the time to focus on one at a time, finish one, move on to the next. And you're going to have a much easier time and you'll spend less energy focused on switching between tasks.
For sure. Yeah, definitely within like a classroom structure, like having like towards the end of like my engineering semesters, there's typically multiple final projects, final reports, presentations, studying for finals. Um, it definitely is kind of an intuitive thing. Like when you work through that stuff, you don't want to like start one assignment and then just like break off and go to something else, or even like do one assignment for one class, still have more to do for that class, and then switch over. You knock it out class by class so that like all the information that makes sense pools together. You're not trying to like rack around a bunch of information from different sources. Like it's all just clear cut what you need to do. Everything pulls from the same place. You're not going crazy with it. Like everything's organized when you structure your productivity like that.
That's a good point. It's not just the fact that switching tasks has a physical cost. You have to move from one place to another or click to a different web page to do a different task. But it
Yeah, because
has
clicking web pages has a lot of physical drawbacks. Like it's taxing.
it can take more time than you would think. But
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, what I'm getting at is that there's a mental cost to switching as well because when you're completing a task, you're in a certain headspace to complete that task. You're thinking
Yeah,
about all the things you need to do, the goals. You're thinking about how you're going to accomplish it. And when you switch to a new task, you have to kind of load up an entirely different frame in your mind to complete that task.
for sure.
All right. So number 3 is limiting distractions. I think we've covered this one quite a bit.
The phones, social media, video games, drugs,
Yes.
bad,
So
bad. Some good, mostly bad when distracting.
mostly bad. And when you're working on something, when you have a period of time that you're setting aside for work, you got to find ways to cut those things out. So putting your phone on do not disturb, having a quiet environment that does not have a ton of stimulation going on to keep you focused. Maybe not even being at home. If being at home distracts you, if it makes you think about all the chores you need to do around the house, maybe you need to go to a library, to the park, something like that. Just
Yep,
a change of environment can help.
yep.
Okay, and the next one is timing the energy curve.
What
This
the hell
is.
is an energy curve?
I thought you'd never ask.
That was scripted.
Basically, it's like you get the Tesseract. Have you seen the
Uh-huh.
Tesseract from
Uh-huh.
yeah from the
Uh-huh.
Avengers?
Uh-huh.
You just get it and like
Uh-huh.
put a lot of energy into it, and then like
Uh-huh.
the energy from that will go into you and will make you way more productive.
Oh, that's crazy. And then the energy curve is when you hook up an oscilloscope to the sine wave generator and you're measuring out the input and output voltages and currents, and then you use derivatives of Ohm's law to figure out your power output in nominal wattage. And that's the power curve.
Yeah, that's
Sick,
what it
okay.
is. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that.
Okay, but for real, the energy curve is basically just understanding what times of day you have more energy and what times of day you have less energy. Because each person tends to have times in the day where they feel good, they feel focused, energized, and times of day when they're not. For example, for me, when I wake up in the morning, usually takes me about an hour to get into a place where I feel like I can be focused, quite a bit of energy. But around lunchtime, I start to uh, my energy starts to diminish a little bit, which I think is normal for a lot of people to have those kind of midday midday tired periods. That's why you
Midday
see a lot of
lulls.
people. Yeah, you see a lot of people taking naps at that time
I'm
of
a,
day.
I'm a big nap boy. God gives his earliest bedtimes to his sleepiest soldiers.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Taking a nap is great.
I took
But
a nap today. I took a nap before this.
that's great. Look at you now.
Yeah, I'm full of life and energy.
Oh yeah.
It worked out.
So in the middle of the day, I have a dip in energy, and my energy tends to come back around 7 o'clock, like 7 o'clock to 11 or so when I go to bed. I tend to have another burst of energy. So timing the energy curve just means you work during the times that you know you have a lot of energy, and you relax and pull back during the times where you don't have as much energy.
Yep, that makes sense. Play to your strengths. I feel like that's goes without saying. Um, I don't know. In my own case, though, I feel like it's a little bit variable. It's not necessarily consistent, but I can kind of recognize it as it goes. If I have like a free day and I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to go to the gym or when I'm going to run errands, I kind of just feel it out that day. So if I'm not feeling crazy energetic in the morning, I just let it ride out until I get that energy to do what I need to do. But it's also important that I don't like let myself be lazy the entire day. Like I do things to try to like plan around like me being active later if necessary. It's kind of like a feel it out, play by ear sort of an ordeal.
It's definitely not always consistent every single day,
For sure.
but there are patterns that you can identify, different patterns that are likely to repeat. And so
For
it's
sure.
good to know what those are.
Yeah. And you can always make yourself productive like in the normal times where you are, but then, it could be like one day you're normally energetic in the afternoon, but then you get a little tired that day. You can still kind of push through it if you need to, but it's also fine to give yourself grace and take a little nap, maybe take a little power nap.
Sure. Yeah, there's times where you need to push through even when you're tired. But just be aware of that change in energy.
Yep.
The last item is having a consistent sleep schedule. This is pretty self-explanatory. I think everybody knows this. Everyone knows that it's good to have a consistent sleep schedule. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of
Yeah.
actually doing it.
Yeah. It's really difficult for me to sleep consistently, but I know for sure, like when I was working at like one of my first jobs, like when I would have a consistent work schedule that got me to wake up at like the same time, like 4-ish days a week, I felt so much better throughout the day. But it is a struggle of mine to maintain a sleep schedule on my own because I go crazy at night and then I don't know how long I'm going to stay up, and then it affects how long I sleep in the next day. But giving yourself a structure like that is super beneficial for your productivity, 100%.
Yeah, it's going to ensure that you have more energy when you're actually awake and that you're getting quality sleep when you are sleeping, which is the
Yep,
goal.
100%.
All right, so to end it off, I have a couple more questions that we can think about. All right. What habits can you limit or stop entirely that will enhance productivity? You can take that one first, maybe.
What habits to limit to enhance your productivity? Screen time on your phone is a huge one for sure. That's something I'm trying to do myself. I try to keep a log of how often I'm on my phone so I can not be on it and do things that I could be practicing my radical guitar skills instead of scrolling through Instagram and watching other people's radical guitar skills. That's kind of fun. Honestly, it's just kind of like things that you find yourself just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. There's like a lot of like really unproductive behaviors. It's things you kind of do in a lull or like in a weird break that you just kind of like overindulge in. It really just kind of comes down to like separating your time between productive and non-productive. You just want to make sure that if you're in a productive time, do what you need to do. But if you're in a non-productive time, you could get away with doing a lot of other stuff. That's nothing, crazy motivating. You're allowed to have that time, but it's recognizing when to and when not to do those things for the most part. Phone time's a big thing because that's addicting. I feel like the main thing is anything that's addicting, you want to limit as much as possible because the more you do it, the more you're going to overindulge, and then that's cutting into your productive time.
Very true. For me, I would say I would say using my phone is definitely one. I can get sucked into all kinds of things, looking at the stock market, looking at YouTube.
You would look at the stock
Uh,
market, stock bro.
Dude, you got to know what's going on. You got to know what's up, what's down.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what they say.
Anyways, that's definitely something for me.
For sure. I feel that. The phone's a big thing.
Oh yeah, it's always there. It's right in your pocket, always calling out to you for your attention.
Please. They want you on your phone. Remember that. They get money from you being on your phone.
Yeah, don't give them money. Don't give them money
Don't
by giving them your
don't give
time.
don't give anybody money ever.
No, no,
Ever.
charity? Never heard of
Charity,
her.
no. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right?
Okay, next one. How can you implement productivity techniques in your life? Uh,
The ones we discussed previously?
they can be the ones that we discussed or other ones that you like to use.
I think those are pretty good ones. I mean, really, in the end, it's just kind of like biting the bullet. It's all about developing a habit, and it's difficult to start up. Obviously, with like anything, you just have to mind will yourself. You have to be in a place where you can force yourself to be uncomfortable doing something new, something that's not instantly gratifying. But you really just have to like focus on the end all. You have to completely understand and comprehend the benefits and then have that motivation and that fire to follow through. It's just kind of a daily trusting the process kind of a thing. In the end, those techniques mean nothing if you're not willing to properly implement them.
Yes, the techniques do mean nothing if you don't have that long-term perspective and that long-term belief that your effort is going to pay off. It's going to lead to that goal being achieved that you're working towards.
Yep.
But personally, for me, I definitely could make more use of the Pomodoro technique, specifically while working on this podcast. Up
Yeah, you've
until
been
now,
slacking.
all right. I I
I'm
could be a
kidding.
little.
I'm kidding. You
Oh,
you've
no,
made
man.
this all happen, so
Hey, I mean, you're contributing a ton as well, man. So
oh, for sure.
I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
But I do think I could be a little more efficient if I implemented the Pomodoro technique and was intentional with taking breaks.
Remember the task at hand. Never forget.
Always, yeah. Don't give anybody else your time. Your time is
Ever.
your most valuable asset.
Never give anybody your time. It's all for you.
Okay, don't take my words out of context.
Yeah, I'll try. If not me, it could be somebody. It could be somebody worse.
That's true. For all we know, this podcast could reach anyone. We have no idea. All right, last question. This one is a little bit deeper, so we can
Oh,
we can
philosophical.
it is a bit philosophical. I want us to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty, the existential details on this one.
For sure. I like being existential.
What is the relationship between your desire to be productive and your spirituality?
Oh, I could lead with that. I One thing that I've noticed with my spiritual motivations is something heavy in Christianity is our relationships with people and trying to be act godly. Help thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Yeah, love thy neighbor. That stuff. Uh, I feel like at this point, 80% of my motivations are surrounded by people. Like I want to perform my best because I have been shown a lot of love and grace by the people I choose to surround myself with. And in a sense, I feel like I owe something. Not like that I feel like a great debt or burden on my shoulders in any way, but I genuinely want to perform my best because I know the people in my life want to see me at my best. In the same way, I want to see the best in my peers. And so I try to keep them motivated as well. I keep that motivation under my belt. I try to, because it's selfish motivations always lead to an end, and it's always a lonely end, and it's not something we should be striving for. We want to strive to. I mean, I've said this before. We humans are social creatures. We want to be able to touch the lives of others in positive ways. We want to uplift one another. That's a very Christian thing to do. So ultimately, it's about doing these things for the other people in my life. I can help them, provide for them, mentor them in the similar fashions they have done for me.
Sounds like gratitude is a big motivator.
For sure, I'm incredibly gracious. At least I try to be.
Yeah, we can't all be perfect, but gratitude is a very important motivator. I think it's a much better motivator to have than selfish ambition, desire for money, for luxury.
Lust, wrath, greed, gluttony.
There's a reason they're called the seven deadly sins.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, my spiritual life is very, very closely tied to my desire to be productive. I would say in the past that was not true. I was working towards much more selfish goals. I think, especially since I've been married, it's really helped me to see how the things that I work towards and the goals that I have affect my wife.
For sure.
If I'm not taking into consideration those things, then I'm going to end up hurting her and probably hurting myself, maybe hurting other people. But
the man loves his wife.
Of course, got to. At the center of everything, though, is God for me. My relationship with God is number one. And so all of the things that I pursue that, people, that even secular people will view as being productive, like my job, my relationships, this podcast, those things are all directed towards improving my relationship with God as well. For example, through this podcast, I want to be able to communicate my thoughts and ideas with other people, but also be able to articulate what I believe in a more precise way for myself, so that I can.
For sure. Documentation, baby.
Yeah, I mean, not even just documentation, but I think that articulating what you truly believe and talking about those things with other people will help you to know yourself on a much deeper level, and also get to know God on a much deeper level.
I agree. I think putting those ideas out there is much different than internalizing them. Even like hearing yourself like say things and articulate things, like you said, even provides like kind of a different perspective. Helps you really like think things through and figure out what you want. And I agree. Like God is at the center of everything. Like I wouldn't be doing the things I do for other people if it wasn't for God. Like the goal is to strive for godliness. Obviously I'm not going to be God or want to have that power and dominion or anything, but it's the pursuit and touching the lives of others and allowing them to develop their own paths towards those things as well.
And God loved us first, so that we can love the world. And
amen, brother.
I think that should be our goal, and I think that's a good place to leave it off, unless you have anything else you'd like to say.
No.
Thank you all for joining us. Please send us your thoughts, suggestions, and criticisms at masculinespiritpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to continuing this journey together. Have a blessed day.